After finally clearing my job-related tasks for the day, I got ready to head home. Somehow, I finished everything before sunset. Having two people helping really ensured that I would get out of the office on time nowadays. Just as I left my office building, I heard my name. I turned to see a man half jogging to catch up to me. I'd seen him before but didn't remember from where. It wasn't until he got closer that I recognized his face under a set of dark sunglasses. He was the agent that found my gun and drove Nick and I back home on the velvet bat case. Or his brother. There were a lot of agents who looked like him. Stopping, he paused to fix his tie before he explained what was going on. You're being requested to investigate something with your partner. I was in the area, so I offered to pick you up. The dark-haired agent explained. Another case wasn't what I expected that day, but I could never refuse doing a job with Nick. It's pretty nice of this agent to come pick me up. Not being able to make spells meant I had to rely on others to get me to jobs. I could start to make spells after I learned how to freehand a perfect circle, but it turned out to be a very hard skill to acquire. As we walked to the park, the man guiding me introduced himself. He went by 706. All his brothers went by numbers instead of names because their parent ran out of ideas pretty quickly. Due to how similar they all looked, they didn't mind getting mixed up with each other. He easily made a circle in chalk inside the now dark park to send me on my way. I may not be a real agent, but at least I started to get along with more people who worked for the corporation lately. When I walked into the circle, I got transported to a hiking trail in the middle of a forest. Looking around, I didn't see Nick along the trail. I decided it would be best to stay in one spot to wait for him, but I got creeped out standing alone pretty quickly. I've seen so many terrible things in the woods that my mind started playing tricks on me. The wind blew, ruffling the leaves and howling through the trees. For a brief moment, I thought I heard laughter off in the distance. Being so distracted, I didn't hear someone sneaking up on me until it was too late. A bright light blinding my vision and I lashed out from being startled. My punch landed across someone's face and the flashlight dropped, knuckles stinging. I almost threw another punch when I noticed who I just slugged across the face. Nick was bending over for his flashlight, not appearing too upset from being hit. I quickly launched into apologies. Instead of being angry, he almost appeared disappointed in how weak of a punch it felt. I really needed to go back into some weightlifting. Why did you sneak up on me like that? I asked, still a little rattled. I thought you could hear me. Anyway, what we need to look at isn't far. Some hikers reported it earlier in the day. I stuck close to him, not wanting to be alone in the woods for any amount of time. He easily stepped along the rough ground and even needed to help me from tripping while going down a steep slope in the trail. After a while of walking and not seeing anything unusual, Nick stopped to shine the flashlight off into the darkness. Aside from the forest being naturally creepy at night, I didn't see anything special. Just as I was about to question what we were there for, Nick bent over to pick up a fist-sized rock. He threw it in front of us, only to have the rock completely disappear a few feet away. It didn't land somewhere unseen. It simply wasn't there. That's weird, I said after I tossed a few sticks, wondering if I was seeing things. Everything I tossed also disappeared behind an invisible threshold. Very strange. I've never seen something like this before. I cannot sense anything dangerous, or much of anything, really. As Nick spoke, he kept trying to push his hair from his eyes. His hair tied back so poorly most of it was loose at odd angles as if he got ready in a hurry. I really couldn't watch him fiddle with it after a few moments. Instead of focusing on the very strange thing going on in the woods, I told my partner to sit down so I could fix his hair for him. After all, if he couldn't see, he couldn't work. Since I've met him, Nick's hair had grown almost to his shoulders. He really needed to style it or at least cut off the dead ends. You should cut your hair a little. Honestly, I don't know why you keep it so long. Doesn't it get in the way? I asked just as I finished fixing up his ponytail. It's more material to work with. His answer automatic. A small pain jabbed my chest. The corporation took blood and hair samples fairly often from him to try and figure out a way to properly harvest the power the samples gave off. It happened recently because a small part of his hair wasn't even with the rest. They must have taken some from the bangs as well, causing them to fall totally uneven before I adjusted them. Nick would never complain about his hair being taken, he being far too easygoing for his own good. This trail is rarely used, so we are uncertain of when this appeared. The hikers that discovered this normally take a different path. At the last moment they decided on this one and found this. One was brave enough to attempt to enter it, but was forced back. Nick walked over and placed a hand where the invisible wall started. He unable to push it through. When he put more pressure on the spot, sparks suddenly flew from his palm and he got forced back. The damage wasn't much, but I felt a little concerned over how his hand smoked a little. That is strange. None of the hikers had an issue like this, Nick mentioned as he looked down at his healing palm. It must not like you, I said, looking between him and the forest beyond the wall. It honestly appeared normal. I wasn't sure on how we should investigate something like this. Could we ask some creatures in the area if anyone knew of something that could make a wall like this? Nick had the same train of thought. He pulled out a new holster and my gun. I own my own handgun but rarely carried it with me, and the one the corporation provided was loaded with magic bullets that could take down creatures if needed. Due to that, it was only given to me when I was on a job. I quickly put the holster on and ensured the gun's safety stayed on for now. There may be a few small forest creatures we can ask about this. They're friendly enough, but when it comes to forests like this, I don't know what we can encounter. I doubt we'll see anything dangerous, but you having a weapon is a comfort. Without my gun, I wasn't very useful to Nick. At least now we were only dealing with an odd wall and nothing that was outright threatening. I looked back at where I could sense the wall, and a sense of fear slowly creeped into my stomach. We had done one alien case before with unresolved results. This felt more like an alien thing than a supernatural case. Do you think we should tell Rebecca and Chaz about this? Maybe the sister corporation knows what this is. Walking over, I extended my hand until I felt a cool surface blocking my way. It's stupid to touch something that had fried Nick's hand a few minutes ago, but it hadn't harmed the hikers. It might only dislike supernatural creatures and didn't hurt humans. I poked it a few times, testing out to see if it might lash out. What happened next, I'll never live down. The sister corporation keeps most things classified. Nick paused speaking when he noticed my reaction to something over his shoulders. A set of eyes looking back at us in the dark a few feet off the ground. He spun around to shine the flashlight over to see what spooked me. I sputtered out a warning and took a step back from fear. Just as I tripped over my own feet on an exposed root on the ground, I saw the beam of light landing on a very confused raccoon in the trees. I very convinced that those eyes were a witch or something along those lines. Nick didn't have time to react or catch me as I fell backwards into what should have been an invisible wall. I landed hard on my back, feeling too angry at myself to move for a second. When I did get up, I watched as Nick ran forwards and slammed into the wall, unable to reach where I fell. He looked around frantically as if he couldn't see where I landed. I darted over, also hitting the same wall. To my horror, I tripped right inside the invisible force field. Why it let me inside and not Nick a mystery. I pounded my fists on it, shouting, trying to get Nick's attention. He still couldn't hear or see my location. As a desperate attempt at rescuing his partner, he pulled out his sword to try and see if he could cut down the wall. The orchestra, very a powerful sword. For a moment, I thought I would be reunited with him in the next few seconds. He took a few steps back and launched an attack where he hoped wouldn't hit me. I watched, unable to do anything, as the attack came right back and the shockwave exploded moments before it hit him. The dust took ages to clear. I slammed into the wall, and even tried shooting it, trying to get to Nick. When I could see him, he sat against a tree, knocked out, and his sword was stuck in the ground. At least he wasn't bleeding or appeared too badly hurt. That was a miracle. I might have stayed trying to force my way through until my hands were raw if I hadn't seen a figure off in the distance. Someone stumbled away through the dark trees. I took the risk and run over, praying this person knew what was going on. I got closer to them, my mind scrambled from worry for Nicky. Hey, can you? I caught up, grabbing the stranger's shoulder to turn him around, ignoring how dirty his clothing looked. His face caused my entire body to freeze up. Hand still on his shoulder, the only thing I could do was let a small scream bubble up. His eyes were dead, and rotted flesh hung from his face, exposing his teeth. I pulled my hand away a second too late. A set of dead jaws came down on the side, breaking the skin. A swift kick and a yelp got the walking corpse off. Scrambling back, my eyes darted from my wound to the zombie, not believing what I was seeing. After everything I've encountered, you would think a zombie wouldn't be a big deal. Moaning came from the woods, my hand bleeding, but not too badly. The corpse stumbling forwards, trying to get another bite as more shapes moved between the trees. I would be surrounded if I stayed still. Turning on my heel, I ran. What the hell was going on in these woods? Invisible walls, zombies. I could shoot them, but decided to save my ammo until I was truly in trouble. I could easily outpace the dead trying to follow. It was embarrassing I got even bitten in the first place. I kept up a decent jog until I could not hear or smell anything trying to chase me. I saw a hill with a tree growing on top. Over time, the dirt wore away, exposing the roots. Enough space for me to fit inside, so I quickly made it a hiding spot, trying my best to not think of whatever insects may also be hiding. First, I checked my phone. The time and date were working, along with the flashlight feature. Nothing else would load up, not even my notes. I needed to save the battery and try to figure out what was going on. Nothing came to mind. I couldn't even guess as to why there were some zombies in a forest. Between the roots, I thought I saw something in the trees. I carefully got out, looking over my shoulder to see if there was anything else watching me. A small dot of red in the trees drew my attention. Using my phone, I shone a light on it to see a small camera mounted on the branches. Okay, this was weird. Too damn weird. Someone was watching all of this. For what purpose? It wasn't the corporation, that for sure. And if it was another company like them, they would know about a huge thing like this going on. I couldn't imagine this was set up by the hunters, or maybe it might be. Did we stumble on some training program set up deep in the woods? However, watching now saw me as well. That could either be a good or a bad thing. I noticed more lights blinking in the night now that I looked for them. I hoped following them would lead me somewhere useful. Hand on my gun, I kept following the trail of cameras, praying for a miracle. I needed to get the hell out of here and back to Nick. I didn't have time to waste on why this was all happening. I walked for a few hours, my body so tense it hurt. My mind kept tricking me into seeing figures off in the woods. At times I did come across zombies in the distance, but they were easily avoided. A miracle did happen when I heard voices before they heard me. I carefully walked through the trees trying to find the source. I swear it was right here. Do you think it was a trap? A hushed woman's voice came from nearby. If it was a trap, we would be dead by now. Maybe someone already picked the supplies up. A second girl spoke. I looked over, making out two shapes in the dark, one shorter than the other. I could let them leave, or risk approaching them to get information. My hand started to feel itchy. I needed to clean it before I got sick. I decided on speaking with these two, hoping we could help each other. With my hands raised, I came up behind them. A light blinded me for a few seconds and one of the girls screamed, "Who the hell are you?" The taller one asked, her voice shaking in fear. "I work for a corporation that investigates weird stuff like this. I really don't have any idea what's going on. I'm Skylar, by the way," I said in friendly tone, trying to win them over. "Don't trust him. This is totally a trap." The flashlight lowered so I could see the pair better. The taller one had dark hair and glasses. She stood in front of a shorter, yet older woman, trying to protect her. They didn't look related, nor did they look like hunters. Each wore packs, and the darker-haired girl held out a gun, hand trembling. She didn't look to be the type to have ever fired one before. "If I was going to hurt you, I would have done so already. I just want to know what's going on. Can you help me out?" I asked, the back of my neck starting to sweat. She hesitated, looking me over, and stared at my holster. Whatever trouble they were in, they needed one more friendly person with a weapon. The issue being if they could trust me. At first, I doubted they would. She slowly started to lower her gun, chewing on her lip, not wanting to regret her choice. "If you have a gun, how did you get bitten?" she asked, and I felt my face flush in the dark. I saw a person and walked right up to him. How was I supposed to know he was a biter? They both appeared worn to the bone, their clothing dirty and ripped at the edges. Neither had gotten a good meal or a decent night's sleep in days. My comment, so ridiculous compared to everything they've gone through, it made them snort out a laugh. "I'm Taylor. This is Mary. Follow us and we'll get you caught up. If you try anything funny, I'll shoot you," she warned. Mary didn't appear too happy with letting me hang around, but didn't speak up. Taylor also didn't ask for my gun, which was a surprise. She must think I would be a better shot and should keep it in case some danger shows up. There was something aside from zombies in the woods. Otherwise, these two wouldn't be so worn out from avoiding such a minor threat. Taylor led us back to a small square building in the trees labeled washrooms. One side for women, one side for men. They went into the men's side, claiming if anyone looked for them, they might try the women's first. Inside clean and looked like any washroom you would see in a public park. Two other girls waited inside. The one ran over to Taylor, giving her a hug as if they never thought they would see each other again. The second didn't look over, her eyes staring forward, seeing nothing. Some supplies were laid out, but not much, not enough for them all. The other girl introduced herself as Nikki. I smiled and told her that was sort of my friend's name and I wanted to get back to him. She was a nursing student, so she got right to work cleaning my hand. As Taylor explained some things, "A while ago we all got a message about an event going on, sort of like a zombie run. Have you heard of those? People dress up as zombies trying to catch you in the woods. Anyway, we thought it was that. The prize to who lasts the entire week is $1 million, she said. They only had a few band-aids to spare for my hand, and that would be good enough. The fact I let myself get bitten made me feel more sore than the bite itself. I wasn't worried about turning, assuming that to be a movie myth. I looked at all of them, understanding why they would take a chance on a contest like this. Mary and the other women weren't really suited for something like this, but for $1 million they would have at least gone to check it out. "So, you went to see what it was all about, and it turns out the zombies were real?" I asked, and they all nodded. There were over 20 of us. As far as I can tell, it's our group and a team of men left. Some zombies are really easy to deal with, but each night a boss appears. It's faster and stronger than the others. For the first few nights we've been lucky enough to avoid them. We worked together to take one down yesterday without it killing anyone, but the other team came in and started to take us out. The bastards. I thought you were one of them. She needed to stop speaking to keep herself composed. My stomach lurched and I felt cold over what they had all been through so far. I can't believe she took the risk and trusted me after thinking I could have been the one to kill one of her friends. Anyone else might have shot me on sight. Mickey went over to her to take Taylor's hand. She whispered how it wasn't Taylor's fault for what happened. I found myself gritting my teeth. hating whoever set this all up. From the cameras, it was clear this entire thing had been made for entertainment. There are some rules, and even though this isn't easy, it's not impossible. Nikki chimed in. The bathrooms are a safe zone for an hour. Even the bosses won't attack you if you go inside one. Supplies drop 2 times a day. If you find a map, it'll direct you to the spot. 2 maps don't show the same drops through. So, 2 people who find maps won't run into each other trying to get supplies. She pulled out a small piece of paper and held it out for me to see. A small red spot blinked as if the paper was digital. A green X remained off in the distance, showing where the supplies were. She explained the red dot being the person holding the map, and it moved if the person did. The one she showed me had some supplies too far away, so they decided to not go for it. When I found them, they were using a map, but the X disappeared before they reached it, meaning someone else got lucky and found the supplies, or they disappeared for a different reason. This feels a bit like video game logic, I said, frowning. Whoever set it up must like them. I don't know how any of this is possible, but figured it was best to just roll with it. I could die, so how magic maps work isn't my main worry, Nikki said, and I agreed. How long have you guys been out here for? I said, hoping the end might be in sight. Tomorrow at 5 p.m. is when this is all finished. We have enough food and water from the taps. The issue is we are low on ammo. We only have 3 bullets left. If we come across the other team. She trailed off, unable to think of that possible outcome. Their group outnumbered. From what I could see, Taylor appeared to be the only one who could really fight. They explained that the silent woman in the corner was named Kayla. She'd come along with her son and watched when he got murdered by the other team. As far as they could tell, more people were murdered by humans than monsters that week. It very impressive these 3 not only took care of themselves, but were also watching over someone still in shock. I suppose there isn't any way to back out, I offered, and that offended Mary. Her round face grew red as she snapped at me. Back out? After everything we've been through, we earned that money. We can't just walk away even if we could. I let her rant, not responding to the outburst. She'd been through hell and I was a stranger just walking into the middle of it, not understanding what she and the rest had gone through up until now. Taylor's expression made it clear she did not share Mary's ideas though. She would gladly leave if that meant getting out alive, or getting some of her group out safe and sound. The money was not worth her life. Mary went off to look over their supplies. She very upset and overtired. The last thing we all needed was a fight. These girls should rest, but only had a little while longer of safe time left in the washroom. Nikki got me to drink something, but I refused offers of food, which she obviously glad for. After I was looked after, she went over to Kayla as they all tried to figure out the next step. I couldn't help but try and think of who might be behind this entire thing. Through the open window, a groan came on the wind. It made everyone tense over the fact that the dead were just off walking around beyond those walls. Those cameras. Do you know who set this all up? I asked the girls. They all shook their heads, not having too many answers. We never got the name. We met this tall, skinny guy who explained everything. The first day happened so fast because a boss was released right after the explanation. We all were just trying to stay alive instead of trying to keep track of where the organizer went. As far as we can tell, whoever did all this was because they were bored. Bored? That triggered a memory. Wasn't the creature we came across in the cult case bored? He also mentioned being a necromancer as part of his title. If we were against whatever fee was, I doubted we could do anything about it. He being so powerful, not even the corporation could do a damn thing about him. We might need to just stay alive until 5 the next day. Just as Taylor opened her mouth to speak, an overpowering sound came. The room shook as if in an earthquake as the girls' screams mingled in with the roaring sound. The wall connected to the other set of washrooms were completely torn open, bricks flying, nearly hitting Nikki. She ran over to Kayla, ready to drag the other women to safety if needed, while Mary huddled under the sinks. Scared and stunned, Taylor and I turned towards the now open wall, shaken, but ready to face whatever caused the damage. A glowing red eye looked back. It set into a rotting dead face of some sort of animal. A large one, so big it might as well dwarf the small washroom building. I swiftly took out my gun and flicked the safety off faster than I ever did before. In a few seconds I fired into the creature's face, not expecting much. Whatever bullets I was given did way more damage than I ever hoped. Massive parts of the creature's face were blown off and it let out a cry and fled. Only for a few seconds. It kept pacing back and forth, the face darting near the opening, trying to see if it could be safe to try and eat us. I needed to take it down before it got the idea to collapse the roof on us. Taylor shouted for me to stop as I ran forwards and outside, ready to face whatever was out there. The thing towered over the washroom. It had a rotten, almost dog-like body, but the face more like a bird. It wasted no time trying to bring down razor-sharp claws down to cut me in half. Clumsily rolling out of the way, I dodged the claws. They tore through the ground, creating deep grooves. In that moment, I really wished Nick was there. He could take down this beast with no issue. Taylor hovering around the opening inside the light of the building, debating on what to do. She wanted to run while I distracted the monster. Anything to keep her group safe. Honestly, I would rather them all to make a run for it. It was better if I was the only one who died. The monster blind in one eye from being hit earlier. As it attacked again, I ducked, rolling into the blind spot. If I could keep where it couldn't see me and keep firing, I may have a chance. After all the running I'd done the past few months, I still wasn't in good enough shape to dodge forever. Bracing myself, I started to fire as many times as I could. Each hit that landed took more parts off the creature as it turned its good eye around trying to see. With a roar of pain, the thing stood up on both legs. When the entire body slammed down on the ground, I was knocked off my feet. When I looked up, I was staring directly into the maw of the beast, rotten breath causing my eyes to water. Raising my gun, I fired, unsure of how many bullets I had left in the magazine. Those jaws started to close around my body. A stupid idea came to mind. Taking a huge risk, I ran along the creature's tongue, tapping my gun against the holster for the automatic reload. Before those jaws snapped shut, I pressed the gun against the roof of the mouth and pulled the trigger as many times as I could. With another garbled screech, then creature fell limp into the side. Breathing hard, sweat stinging my eyes, I watched as the body started to crumbling into dust. I couldn't believe how lucky I just got. Yet again, I made it out of a situation where I should have died. Looking back, I saw the girls packed up and moments away from leaving me behind. Mary stared at me, her mouth open and face pale, also not believing my luck. Nikki had an arm around Kayla's waist to guide her along. Taylor still looked as if she might make the group leave. Staying here after all that noise is not a good idea. Dark shapes appeared in the woods and zombies stumbled along, attracted by the fight. "Come on," Taylor shouted, and we made a run for it. I helped Nikki with Kayla and took a pack from Mary to help her. She trusted me after I protected them. At that point, I only wanted to get them out of the woods safe and meet up with Nick again. Who cared about who was behind the entire thing? By sheer luck, we avoided more issues that night. Only a few zombies wanting to cause some trouble, and Taylor taking them out with a long dagger she found earlier in the week. The itchiness in my hand was becoming nearly unbearable. They never mentioned someone turning from being bitten, and still traveled with me after knowing what happened, so I really doubted I could turn into a zombie. As dawn came, my face felt hot and my body ached. If I wasn't becoming a zombie, there was something wrong with me. If that kept up, in a few hours I would be useless. I refused any offers of food, knowing I couldn't stomach it. Nikki kept me hydrated through. When the sun fully was in the sky, Taylor spoke up. "We have a problem," she said, and I looked around for danger. Seeing nothing, she went on with what she meant. "We need to meet at a building at 5 today to end all this. The issue is, everyone who is left alive is going to meet there. If we come across the other team, they'll just shoot us." She stood on an elevated slope, keeping an eye out. I looked at her, then the other three, trying to think of a way to solve our problem. If we didn't get to the meeting spot by 5, did that mean we would be stuck in these woods forever? Or would they just not get their prize money? If we showed up too soon and came across the other team, we had no way of knowing what their weapons situation was like. Would I be able to shoot a human if it came down to it? Fighting monsters felt easy compared to the idea of murder, even for self-defense. The other team might even already be at the meeting spot waiting for us. "Let me go first," I told her. Taylor's face fell. She didn't want to use me as bait to see if the other team arrived early. "No," she started, and I shook my head. "I'm not feeling well. I don't know what's wrong. If I get dizzy at a bad time, it's better if I get shot than all of you. You can take my gun and watch at a safe distance. Your head is clearer, even after being awake all night. If we arrive to the meeting spot first, then we can stay there and wait." She slowly made her way down the slope to look me over. My head started to pound in the last few minutes, and the fever had gotten worse. When the day got hotter, it would just add to my illness. I doubted I could fire my weapon in that state. "You would do that for us?" she asked in a grave tone. I simply nodded my head. As much as I wanted to get out of there alive, I wanted these 4 to be safe more. She thought for a few long moments. The sounds of birds chirping and zombies groaning carried on the wind. With a deep sigh, she nodded and we exchanged guns. We might not even need to go through with our plan. The only thing left to do simply to carefully move towards the meeting spot and do our best not to be spotted by anyone else. The walk through the woods grueling on my body. It felt insanely hot. My shirt drenched in sweat and chills going down to my bone. I've never felt so hot and yet still shivered before today. We didn't speak and just kept moving, only taking quick breaks for Nikki to look over everyone. Aside from forcing me to drink some water, there wasn't anything she could do. Most of the day hiking along became a blur due to the fever. We stopped, Taylor motioning for us to get low. I smelled something awful up further along the trail. Mary stayed behind with Kayla and Nikki as Taylor, and I took a risk to see what might be just ahead. I was glad the other girls stayed behind. I could barely stomach the sight we walked in on. 3 men were dead on the trail. One with a clean shot through his head, the other 2 with wounds from a struggle. flies and other insects buzzing around, showing this happened a few hours ago. The packs and supplies were left behind, but no ammo. Taylor bravely walked over, trying her best to not step in any blood, to pick up whatever she thought was useful, there being a slim chance we would be stuck here for longer than a few hours. She refused to leave anything behind. I carried the heavy packs, refusing to let her take all the burden. We made it back to the others but didn't tell them what we saw. Instead, we carefully walked around the scene to keep them from seeing it. It added some time to our walk, but worth it. 2 of the girls wouldn't recover if they witnessed something like that. With a little over 10 minutes to spare, we made it close to the meeting area. Another building stood, a bit different than the washrooms. We all stayed hidden, staring at the brick building in the clear field, looking for danger. It appeared safe, and there weren't too many places to hide, unless they were already inside. The one who murdered those 3 men could be anywhere. I nervously looked over to Taylor, silently telling her I felt ready to start walking across the field, the illness making me useless for anything else. In less than an hour, I wouldn't be able to stand up any longer. This the only thing I could do for them. She nodded, regret clear on her face. I only let myself hesitate for a second before I started walking, leaving them behind. With how much my body hurt from the fever, getting shot was almost a nice thought. Anything so I wouldn't feel like this for much longer. I walked nearly in a daze, expecting to be killed with every step. I entered the shade of the building, my hands shaking as I reached for the door handle. A crack echoed through the clearing and a force slammed into my back, causing me to spill through the door. My head crashed against the stone floor, knocking me out for a while. What brought me back was a cold splash of water across my face. I coughed, pain spiking through my joints, but also my back feeling bruised. He's awake, Nikki cried out over her shoulder. It felt cooler where I was laying. She helped me sit up to look around the dim room. The far wall covered by black monitors, a desk in front of them, and an empty chair. Whoever was watching us did so from there. The other 3 girls were alive and well, and I breathed easier knowing that fact. I started to ask what happened, and Nikki quickly explained. When I got shot, Taylor spotted who fired in my direction. She shot out a full magazine, somehow hitting the other person as they all made a run for it over here. The thing that saved me was that inside the pack turned out to be a bulletproof vest. My luck struck again. I had let Taylor look through the pack, so I had no idea it would be in there. She must not have known what it was, or else she would have made me wear it. It a bit past 5, so they were waiting for the person running the whole ordeal to show up. Didn't we win? Shouldn't we be getting a prize or something? Mary asked, her voice frantic as she paced. We're waiting on one more person. They should be arriving shortly. A voice came and the entire room lit up, blinding us. A man sat on the desk, a smile plastered over his thin face, long black hair tied back, and red eyes looking us over. A second ago, he wasn't there, and the countless array of snacks weren't there either. Moments after he spoke, the doors opened. Another man came stumbling inside, bleeding from the shoulder. He spotted us and cursed. If his arm worked, he would have raised his gun to try and take out as many as possible. 5 still alive. Oh well, at 15 million it's better than nothing, he said, with a twisted smile on his face. That was why he killed off everyone he could. He wanted their 1 million cash prizes at the end. Without any doubt, he started with the other team and slaughtered them on the last day. Taylor fumed, her face red in rage, her hand hovering at the holster, but she didn't grasp it. Overall, she was tired of killing, even though this man deserved it. What are you talking about? Everyone who lives a week gets 1 million. You don't get more money just because other people died, the red-eyed man said with a shrug. All of us stared at him, shocked. A rage started in my gut, making me feel hotter. This man killed others for nothing. Utterly nothing. He started to shout, screaming how unfair that would be. How dare he talk about fairness after he'd taken so many lives? If I could, I would have gotten up and punched him. Turns out I didn't need to. Kayla moved on her own for the first time, her eyes wide and wet with tears. Nothing. My son died for nothing. Her small hurt voice cut through the other man's voice. So what? He was weak and would have died anyway. I was doing him a favor if you think about it. He wasn't trying to justify his actions, but sounded as if he gloated over what he did. I weakly got to my feet, wanting nothing more to smash his face in. Kayla being well taken care of and not as worn down as everyone moved faster than we could. She snatched up a dagger from the packs Taylor set down. She slipped through Taylor's fingers and ran over, driving the knife into the man's gut. Her revenge so quick, he didn't have a chance to react. He didn't believe she would actually go through with it. His face slack in shock as he fell to the floor. When Nikki reached her again, Kayla went back into shock. The knife easily taken away from her, and she slowly guided away from the body. The dark-haired man, and the one behind all of this, let out a cackle. He found the entire thing so amusing it made me sick. My body shook from fever and rage. It bad enough he got amusement from people dying. He also started laughing right in our faces. You bastard, I hissed. He stopped, rubbing the tears from his eyes. His grin never faded. Sharp teeth caught the light in such a threatening manner even if he appeared human. With another shrug, he accepted my insult. Yoop, that's what I am. I'm also so bored. I let you in wondering what an agent would do, but you got bitten so fast. How lame. But that's also a bit funny. I don't even know why you were stalking around here. Everything that happened was consensual. Everyone signed the forms. I made them aware of the fact they could die. I never hid anything. It was their choice to participate. With more shrugging, he reached over finding a snack he wanted and tore open the bag. He's so thin he looked as if he hadn't eaten in his life. That's not I started, but was cut off by a coughing fit. Nikki stayed beside me worried. She knew if I could, I would have started a fight with this man. I looked over at Taylor who couldn't meet my eyes. She feeling guilty over the man being right. They did all sign up for this. No one forced them, each one with a reason to risk their lives for the money. Can I get paid and go? Mary begged, voice choked with tears. Oh yeah, your funds are in your accounts. Since you amused me so much, I added a bit extra. And little baby agent, your partner has been making all sorts of noise trying to get to you. Take him and kindly piss off. You weren't as fun as I thought. With a wave of a hand, we all jumped as someone appeared in midair to come crashing down onto the office chair, smashing it. Within seconds he recovered, standing up, nose bleeding but hand at the ready to draw his sword. Nikki, I asked, shocked from him just appearing like that. Both him and Nikki responded to me. He hurried over, his placid face slightly twisted when he saw my condition. I was trying to tell him what happened, begging him to arrest or do something to the guy that just made him appear, while Nikki tried to get him to take care of his bleeding nose. Our conversation a mess, and he kept trying to get me to sit down so he could explain what was going on. I wasn't happy about it, but I sat down. Nick made his way over to the dark-haired man and I expected him to take the man in. But he asked for the forms everyone had signed, which were gladly handed over. Nikki, people died. Aren't we going to do something about this? I hissed. The corporation approved this. He filled out the right forms ahead of time. All the bodies for the undead were collected with permission from the families. This issue was, the location was left out on the forms so when the barrier was found, it didn't tie into any open files. I couldn't believe what my partner just said. For a brief moment, I thought he could be a fake. But no one could act like Nick this well. For some reason, the corporation really did approve some guy doing his own zombie survival game off in the woods. I hated that there wasn't anything I could do. Nick wasn't very happy either. If it was up to either of us, none of this would have happened. Ops, I must have forgotten to put down where I was going to do all of this. It was planned to be on an island, but that fell through. If it makes you feel any better, I won't be doing this again. It was so much work for so little reward. Nick and I ignored the man casually talking and munching through a bag of Asian chips. My partner made his way over to explain he had medical personnel nearby, and a way for the survivors to get back home. He also got some counselors on call for anyone who needed them after all of this. Earlier when he woke up, he went back to get back up to try to rescue me. When Abarash caught wind of the case he had picked up, she remembered the forms from months ago and dug them up. From there, they could figure out what was going on. Nick to be on standby for when the wall came down. Somehow, the necromancer summoned him to us instead. Are all necromancers like this? I muttered mostly to myself, watching the person I now greatly disliked acting as if he didn't have a care in the world. There was blood on his hands and he brushed it off so easily. Oh, what do you mean? Met a lot of necromancers, have we? He asked, smile wide and taunting. Yeah, a little while ago. We came across this creature named Fee and his demeanor changed so quickly I stopped speaking. His face pale and eyes wide. The necromancer wasted no time jumping off the desk. No longer cool and collected, he was shoving bags of snacks into a bag. I had no clue why the mention of Fee's name would put him off so much. I'm getting the hell out of here. I won't be seeing you ever again. Unless you tell Fee you saw me. If you do that, I'll murder you so hard. Even more confused, I watched him reach over in the air as if he was opening some curtains. As he pried his hands open, a crack appeared. It was as if he just ripped a hole in the world to a completely different one. With one more threat, he ducked inside, leaving behind most of his snacks and all of us utterly stunned. Nick the first to move. He carefully helped me to my feet and guided me along, and the girls slowly started to follow. They were picked up by agents who looked them over and made plans on sending them home. I got sent to the hospital and left with some antibiotics to clear up whatever I picked up from being bitten. At least I really wasn't turning into a zombie. Turns out necromancer zombies were much different than movie ones. On the way to the hospital, I spoke with Nick, trying to understand why the corporation would let such a thing happen. He explained the necromancer we came across wasn't as powerful as Fee, but most likely more powerful than any agent the corporation had. He was being polite, giving them a heads up about his plan and filling out forms. If he wanted to, he could just go through with the zombie game without anyone being able to do much. In fact, we witnessed just of how strong he was. Traveling across the world didn't take too much magic. Most creatures could do so. Going to a different world, however, that cost more magic than what most creatures possessed. and that necromancer opened a path with his bare hands. When creatures used magic, they used spells because that focused the magic and, in the end, made the action they wanted it to take cost less. They could use it without drawing a circle, but that normally cost double, if not triple the effort. Not even Anchor could open a path to a connecting world with his bare hands. Now, that answered my question of a multiverse out there. Nikki couldn't tell me much about it aside from yes, there are different universes out there either nearly identical to our own, or so completely different we could never wrap our minds around it. The corporation dealt with an unknown number of worlds, and that the main reason why they were always so short on agents. It was a lot to take in. I stayed bedridden for a few days and nearly went insane trying to deal with all the new information. The best advice Nick could give simply not to think about it. The universe big enough to make your head hurt. Trying to add countless more to think about wasn't something I would be ready to comprehend. He needed to bribe me with chicken soup to drop the whole idea. If a case came up dealing with going to a different universe, then I could think about it. Right now, I needed for focus on the smaller cases coming into my company and guiding my 2 new employees to the right jobs while I was ill in bed. If I could help it, I never wanted to deal with a necromancer again. And zombie movies were completely ruined for me as well.